What's up, guys? Nolan King here with the January 8th edition of the MMA Junkie Twitter Mailbag. You guys stuck with me through the new year, sending in questions. I really appreciate it. We had a great spread and a good variety this week. So let's just jump right into it with the first question about the man who is headlining the first pay-per-view of 2021, Conor McGregor, none other than the notorious one. Ethan M. at One Punch Sports asks, can a poised and focused McGregor beat Khabib in a rematch? I think that this is a little bit of an unfair question, right? Because the implication is potentially here that he was not poised or focused the first time. And I don't think that that's giving Khabib enough credit. I think Khabib beat Conor fair and square in a pretty dominant one-sided fashion. And Conor's only fought once at welterweight since then. And Khabib, meanwhile, has continued his reign of terror through 155-pound division. So for me, knowing the history of UFC rematches and how that works, I don't have any reason to believe that the second fight would go any different. However, I still think that in a fight, Conor McGregor has a chance to beat Khabib. I think people are too set on this idea that Khabib beat him the first time, so there's no way that he could beat him, that Conor could beat him a second time. And that's just not true. I mean, Conor's got fire in his hands. He's got power in his hands. He can knock anybody out. He had his moments, a couple of moments in that fight. It wasn't a total shutout, but you know, if I'm going to put money up on it, if I'm going to put my reputation up on it or whatever, there's no way that I'm going to think that history doesn't repeat itself in a second fight. We are 2 for 2 on Conor McGregor questions. Bunch this week. You can definitely tell that people are hyping up for a McGregor return. Young Lee at Stan Masvidal asks, what do you think about Michael Chandler saying he's Conor McGregor's nightmare? Michael Chandler recently came out in an interview, I believe it was with ESPN, and said just that. He said he is Conor McGregor's nightmare matchup. I respect Michael Chandler and everything that he's done. I think he poses some threats to Conor McGregor, especially stylistically. With that being said, I think there are tougher matchups in the 155-pound division than Michael Chandler for Conor McGregor. Obviously, one of them being Khabib Nurmagomedov. The other one, Charles Oliveira, sticks out to me. So I don't necessarily think nightmare might not be the right word, but I respect where Michael's coming from. Obviously, he has confidence in his abilities. He knows his skill sets. I think we all know both of their skill sets, and it's not a fight that I think you can you can really point to either guy and say, hey, this guy's definitely going to dominate the other one. For that reason, I tend to disagree with Michael's assessment, but granted, that's a fight I want to see. I hope we get to see it before 2021 comes to a close. Third question is a UFC Bellator related question from Daniel Lopez. At Daniel888 Lopez asks, if AJ McKee ends his contract with 2 more wins, do you see him signing with the UFC? Recently in an interview with MMA Junkie's Mike Bond, AJ McKee, one of Bellator's hottest stars right now, revealed that he only has 2 fights left on his contract. One of them will take place in the tournament finale of the Bellator Featherweight Grand Prix, which will be against either Patricio Pitbull or Emmanuel Sanchez, depending on who wins that side of the bracket. Now, AJ McKee's obviously a Bellator star right now. Scott Coker takes so much pride in talking about AJ McKee and how he found him at a community center as a kid, and he brought him into Bellator, and he goes on this run, and he's got 20-something wins and no losses. I have a tough time believing that Bellator will not throw money at AJ McKee to make sure he stays, especially if he wins these next 2 fights. I mean, for Bellator to put that much time and effort into a fighter, kind of make him their marquee guy. See, we know prospect identification, we know development, and then to have him go to the UFC, I think would be a big blow. And I think AJ's probably happy where he is. I mean, there has to have been opportunities for him to have left before, and he's chosen to stay. So if he's going to be the face of Bellator, I think he digs it. I think he gets the money, and I think it keeps everyone happy. Final question. I may take a little heat for my answer here from the diehard Diaz fans, but Zach Sale asks, how do you think Nick Diaz would fit in today's welterweight division? I don't really know. It's been a while since we've seen Nick fight. The Anderson Silva fight was the last time that we saw him, and that was 5 years ago. Prior to that, it had been quite a layoff as well. So to me, man, I mean, Father Time is undefeated, and for us to still have this image of Nick Diaz being a fighter that can compete at the highest level, you know, I think that's fair, because that's really the last time we saw him he was still able to compete against Anderson, and before that he was competing against guys that were at the top of the division or we thought were good at the time, whatever it was. But for me right now, I think it's going to be really hard for him to come back and fit somewhere in that top 15, especially when you think of not only the talent that's up there, but the stylistic matchups as well. I mean, champion Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, Leon Edwards, Stephen Thompson. The list goes on and on. I think there are a lot of tough matchups for Nick Diaz up at the top there. And I think it would be kind of unfair of us to have that same idea that he's going to come in and he's going to beat one of those guys after being away for 5 years. I just don't see it. So to me, I love Nick Diaz. I'm a big fan of watching both the Diaz brothers fight. I love their interviews. I love everything about them. But I think we should pump the brakes and recognize this for what it is and see where he fits in by maybe giving him a much lower tier fight than he's used to. And that's it for the MMA Junkie Twitter mailbag this week. We'll be back next week. Until then, please keep sending in your questions, and I really appreciate it, guys. Take care.